Hi guys. In this video, I'm going to quickly go through how to use our whale layered embosser. It's a very simple design that can be done with one color. You'll notice here there's some little raised dots. They're just cute little highlights. You could color them in with a slightly darker color if you wanted to, but we're just going to stick to the one color and paint them at the end. We'll be using the Sugar Arts Mockingbird Elite color to color in our fondant. To start with, we're going to give the stamp a quick dusting with corn flour. Now I'm probably making this design more difficult than it has to be. You could basically just use the blue colored icing and stamp into that, but I'm going to take it up a notch and we're going to stamp this one onto some white fondant. I find it breaks the design up a bit more, so you really emphasize that layered effect. So we'll start by squishing the icing into the stamp, and then we're going to use our sculpting tool to fill it into the edges. We want to make sure that it's not sitting too high off the stamp. You want it as level as possible with your stamp, or you can hollow it out a little bit, because when we stamp it, if there's any extra icing in there, it's going to ooze out the sides. Once we're happy with this, we're going to take a small ball of fondant and we're going to rub it around the edges of the stamp. This is going to clean up any residue. That way, when we stamp onto our white icing, there's not going to be any blue transfer. So as I'm doing this, I'm pulling the fondant back a bit from the edges of the stamp. This is like a pre-release. So when we do come to stamping it, it's just going to help it release just a little bit better, I think. We're going to roll out our base fondant. The height is totally up to you. I think mine is about 3 millimeters high. So once I've rolled out the fondant, I like to add a little bit more cornstarch underneath, just so it doesn't stick to the bench when I actually apply the stamp. We want the icing to be fairly sticky, so make sure you're not applying corn flour to the top of the base icing. When we apply the stamp, we want to add some firm pressure evenly along it. And then we want to release the stamp. Sometimes it'll suction itself onto the bench, making it a bit difficult to pull up. In that case, you would lift the stamp and the icing up together and then just peel it apart. You'll see after I stamped this, we've got a few, like it hasn't stuck down in some places. So it looks like there's a few air bubbles in there. But you can simply just push these down and put it back into the shape it needs to be in. We're going to take our dusting brush and we're just going to try and dust off some of this excess starch that's on there. Now I'm being a little bit pedantic, but once we've sorted out our shape and everything, I'm going to go back to my Mockingbird powder. I'm going to add a few drops of the color solution to the lid, and I am going to use it to paint those little dots we spoke about at the beginning of the video. Now I'm using this exact same color I used to color the icing. It'll turn out darker than the actual color of the icing. Obviously, when you mix it into the icing, it's going to dilute the color a little bit. So yeah, we just paint the dots and it gives it a cute little bit of highlight throughout the thing. Breaks the design up a little bit, I think. And then once we're happy with that, we're going to grab our cutter, cut out the whale, and then apply it to our cookie. And that's it. All done and dusted.